All right, guys, I don't know about you, but when I graduated college, I had student loans. And if you don't want your kids to have student loans, this episode is for you, man, because the true testament of a parent is to give their kids the opportunities and the exposures that they didn't have when they themselves were younger. And on this episode, we're talking to Tim Sheehan, CEO of Greenlight, and we're going to be giving you the blueprint on exactly how to prepare your kids for the future. We're talking about when to give them allowances. We're talking about when and how to invest. When should they have a debit card versus a credit card? We're literally giving you the blueprint. Financial Freestyle starts now. When I look at investing, right, I think, a person always says, okay, when should I invest, right? And I tell them, right, obviously the goal about investing is you want to be consistent and disciplined. It's not like, oh, I'm going to start with $1,000 and grow it to $1 million. No, the idea is like, can you afford to invest every month, right? Budget in order to invest. And looking at some stats, right? Like if you have a kid, their first birthday, so at age 1, if you put $250 a month and we'll use VOO, right? The S&P 500, right? The average 10% return, they'll have over 133,000 by the time they reach 18. But it's different. Right. It's different, right? If you only start at age 10. So now you only get Correct. 8 years of compounding, and that's about 36,000. So I definitely find it important that the kids, that the parents truly urge them to invest, because I was doing the math. It's going to cost about $500,000 when my kids get ready to go to college. And we talked about your ages of your kids, so I'm sure you're feeling that right now.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's the other thing you just made me think of is like, it's really important to investing. It's not like kind of optional. I would say it's critical. And here's my main argument for that is that if you look over the course of a lifetime, so if you look over the last, 90 years, 100 years, you know this, but I'll try to share it for everybody who may not. But your purchasing power has declined by over 90%. It's like 95%, I think. So just think about that. Like the cost of milk, used to be 95% cheaper, back 100 years or 90 years. And so what that means is that the dollar in your hand, is not worth nearly what it was, for your parents, let's say. And so essentially, so that's one thing is it's kind of shocking, but essentially your purchasing power will decline by 95% over the course of your lifetime. So that means the value of that dollar will decline 90 to 95% over the course of your lifetime. And so that is like shocking when you actually like learn that. And I still remember when I did, I was just like, what? Wait, no. And the only thing that, kind of where it clicked was I looked at the price of milk, 100 years ago versus today. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. Whoa. Okay. And that was what I showed my kids too, was I showed them the price of milk back then and what it is now. And then it kind of clicked for them. But the reason I mention that is it's directly related to why you should teach your kids to invest and why, frankly, everybody should be investing is it's the way to protect against the decline in the value of that dollar. So if you just hold the dollar in a savings account, right, it's going to lose 90 to 95% of its value over the course of your life. However, if you invest that dollar and then it's very likely if you, and let's just say you put it in VOO, which is the Vanguard's S&P 500 index ETF. If you just put it in there, it very likely is going to protect you against that decline in value. It's going to hold its value because it's going to rise. Those shares are going to rise in value over time, and they kind of they'll at least protect you from the decline in value, and hopefully it'll actually do better than that and actually become more valuable. But the reason I think it's quite timely for today in today's economy is you can see it where the affluent hold assets, meaning investments. And so that's why they're continuing to spend. They're not really noticing any kind of problem in the economy. It's because their assets have gone up.
Yes.
their homes, their stocks, their holdings, their assets have increased in value while purchasing power has continued to decline. Like I think in
Yeah.
the last 5 years, purchasing power is down like 25%, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and so if you don't hold assets, you really feel that 25% decline in purchasing power. Because
Absolutely.
it's not like you got a 25% raise,
Yeah,
you
and it's
probably are
really the
still.
tale of two worlds here, right? Like
It
to your
is.
point, right? The affluent, they're owning real estate, they're owning stocks. Everything effectively is trading at all-time highs. Yet the subset of Americans that are not investing, which is the vast majority,
Correct.
they are not participating in everything that's happening with the overall economy. And that's why you're starting to see some divergence. You're like, wait, we still have persistent inflation. Credit card debt now is at 1.3 trillion. Yet the affluent people that effectively, keeping GDP and keeping the economy growing, they're owning assets. So they're not even feeling kind of the slowdown and the impact of,
Got it.
inflation and et cetera.
You got it. That's why you hear this people, the experts on TV talking about the K-shaped economy. That's
Absolutely.
really what they're talking about. They're saying that the affluent are just fine, and
Hmm.
they're kind of things are going up and they're spending, and there's no blip in their spending. It's all, they're
Yeah.
comfortable, and it's all because they're holding assets and the value of their assets are increasing. Whereas if you are not holding assets, if you don't own real estate or you don't own stocks and you're not investing, then you are getting squeezed. Because what's happening is you don't own anything that's increasing in value, and so as purchasing power and the value of the dollar is declining, what that dollar can buy is declining. You're feeling that pinch, right? Because now you can't buy the same amount of groceries you used to buy. You can't afford the rent. Maybe the rent has gone up. You can't afford like the movies, whatever it
Hmm.
might be that you're used to being able to do. Even over the course of 5 years, it's
Yeah.
changed quite a bit.
Things are
So
getting outrageous. I
it's
went to a
it's
Bulls
it's
game this past week. It was $50 for parking. I'm like, the Bulls suck right now. Like, how is it $50 for parking and this team sucks? And when I love how you keep saying like the purchasing power goes down. Like people, to put it in real, world context, remember eggs were $9, people. Like it is
yeah,
imperative you have to invest to outpace inflation, or you're obviously gonna be on the wrong side of this K-shaped economy, right? Like
totally.
when eggs were $9 and parking right now is $50, and the one place that inflation never goes away is the cost of college. And it's insane. And that's why I was saying, like, as if we look at what it's expected to be, $500,000 for a 4-year public university. Well, my kids get ready to go to college. So I'm saying like 13 years away. It's already, some schools are $70,000, $80,000 a year. Imagine they're, 125 a year. That's insane.
It is. It really is. Yeah, we have 3 of our 4 kids through college, and it's expensive. It really
Yeah,
is. And yeah, you're right. It keeps going up, and yeah. So I think that learning how to invest, it might be, gosh, it might be more important than anything else in the personal
absolutely.
finance world, I mean,
Absolutely.
yes, you need to, like, learn how to live within your means, and have, at least a kinda like, okay, even if the budget is just in your head, that's fine, you kinda know what you can spend because you know what your housing cost is, and you know what your utilities are, and, you kinda know what your, core costs are, and then how much money you have for discretionary stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, my advice would be for everybody listening to, start to learn how to invest if you aren't investing, and if you have kids, you know, help them learn how to invest. And if you don't know how to invest and you're not sure how to teach them, that's where Greenlight can help. We can help you do that.
Look, guys, we got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to have more with Tim of Greenlight. As a parent, I really look at this episode as something that, for my own selfish reasons, I want to learn more. But I think as the audience, you guys are going to learn a lot, right? I think one thing we need to understand is that by age 7, those early financial habits are already formed, right? Literally, research shows by age 7, kids have already formed their money habits. And so, Tim, let's talk about kind of those investment accounts, right? So, a parent that's watching right now, you know, what would you say is the number one account they need to start thinking about, planning, for their kids' future, whether it's for college, et cetera?
The thing that we tried to do with Greenlight was you have, kind of a spending account, there's a savings account, there's an investing account, and there's a giving account too, so the kids can give to nonprofits through the platform as well.
Nice.
Um, and so the way you do it is, based on the age of the child, you might just use the chores and allowances and savings, because they're not really old enough maybe to go off on their own and use the debit card. And then, maybe when they're in middle school or, they get their first phone, maybe they start to spend a little time away from their parents, and you start to trust them with that. And, they have their own money, which is really the concept you're trying to teach them, is that, you earn your money, and that's the money in the Greenlight account is yours, and you decide what you're going to do with it. But, let me try and help you learn. And they kind of, the beautiful thing is they kind of learn on their own, which is great, because as soon as it's their money, everything changes. It's like, well, I'm not sure I'm going to buy that, because then the $20 I have is going to be down to 2. And I don't know if I really want that thing that badly. It's really crazy what happens when the thing that they'll beg and beg you for to buy, they're not, if it's their money, they're not really sure they're going to buy that thing. So some really interesting things like that happen, where kids learn to make trade-off decisions, basically, like, do I want to buy this thing right in front of me, or do I want to save my money or invest it and maybe get something down the road?
The moment the kid sees there's a finite amount, then it's like, all right, I don't know if I need this candy bar
It's
or
really
toy, right?
hilarious.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really funny to see them, because they're just like, well, let me, maybe, and they hesitate. And that's actually a really good thing, because right there, the learning is happening.
What would you say the average age a child is that is on Greenlight? Kind of what's that age that you recommend parents should be getting their kids a debit card, a Greenlight card?
If you take the average across all kids on Greenlight, it's about 12 years old. But that's because you have the older kids and you have the younger kids, so when you take the average. But yeah, it's really kind of neat. You see the kids kind of, what they use on Greenlight, it just changes with their age. So they go from, chores and allowances and savings, to add the debit card, to now they're using the investing, and they're doing research on stocks and ETFs. And they then propose the investment to the parent, who can approve or decline it. And usually it leads to an interesting conversation where the parent can say, so why do you think we should buy Amazon or Apple, or, or VOO, VOO, the S&P 500 ETF? What do you see in that company that, and they might tell you that they like their products, and then you can start to, like, teach them that, hey, let's take a look here. And there's great content inside of Greenlight to help the kids know what to look at when they're kind of deciding whether to invest. But yeah, you see them start to really get involved in investing, and then you start to see, okay, now they have a job, so they get direct deposit into their Greenlight account. They start driving, and so the parents see their driving scores, which I still love this to this day. Have older kids, as you and I were talking about, but I still get to see their driving scores. So I really, that cracks me up, because you can, hopefully they're getting scores above 90, but if they're speeding, or they're hard braking, or they're rapid acceleration, there's all these things that will be detected and get factored into a driving score. So if you have a teenage driver, it's actually a really great way to, like, give them independence, but then also kind of find out, are they driving well or not. So that I really have loved that, as I had all my 4 kids kind of go through being teenage drivers.
The true goal of a parent is to give your kids, a life that you may or may not have had, right? You want to do better for them than what was done for you. And so I think, to the audience that's watching, I think it's a non-negotiable. You have to start investing for your kids. And as you're investing for them, you take them along the ride and start teaching them. But like day one, I think it's important to have, at least 2 accounts, one of them being a college plan 529 account. And then you also need that custodial account because they could actually see what's happening in that they can see what's happening in both. But, I think when you're looking at that custodial account and you're owning actual companies that they interact with, that's remarkable, right? There's nothing
It is.
better than watching my kids we got the remote that you can talk to, right? When there's like, hey, can you put on YouTube Kids, right? Or put on Disney Plus. It's amazing to say, hey, you own YouTube because you own Google, right? You
That's
own
right.
Disney Plus because you own Disney, right? And I think
That's
that
right.
as you are teaching your kids about investing, like how does Greenlight actually make it relatable to the kids?
We have a partnership with Morningstar Premium where I'm a big fan of Morningstar's premium content and their subscription. And so we did a partnership with Morningstar where the research content, that high quality content, we're using it, but we present it in a way that is super compelling and interesting for kids, and teens too, right? So it kind of like it has some really great things so the user interface is designed for young people, so it's much more consumable the way that they're used to consuming content. Like for example, there's a video which the average one is like a minute or 2 minutes, and it will really quickly run you through. There's one video for each of the S&P 500. There'll be like a video about what does this company do? Like, what do they sell? What do they do? And that's a really quick video, runs you through. And then there's another video, which is, help me assess this company as a potential investment. So, are their sales growing? Are their earnings growing? Who's their competition? It helps them look at the things that, when you're making an investment decision, these are the things that you probably want to take a look at. And so it does it in video form, and it's super fun. And it's like we basically used AI to
Nice.
generate these videos, and it's leveraging the SEC filings from the companies themselves, which, if you try to put that in front of a child, or a teenager, like they're going to just glaze over, right? Reading SEC filings. So
Yeah, I'm not reading a
what you do
10K.
so what we did is we took AI and it reads all that stuff for them, and then it creates a really compelling video out of it. And so that's one thing I love that we did to try to, basically make the information more accessible and more engaging and more interesting to young people. And it's working. The kids in 2025, kids on Greenlight invested $70 million.
That's
So
epic.
like they're doing it. And
Yeah.
and I love that they do the research and then they propose the investment to the parent, and the parent kind of gives the okay or nay. And I like that because it's essentially, encouraging kids to do it the right way, where there's a little bit of parental oversight, but not too much. It's not overbearing. The kids still can be independent and learn how to do the research, and then propose the investment to the parent, who can then, ask them some questions about it, or maybe they already discussed it and just approve it. So I'm super proud of our team. I'm super proud of how we've built Greenlight overall, but especially the investing portion. I think it's a real standout.
Tim, I need your help, right? Because when I talk to the average person, I'm giving them, personal finance knowledge, especially when it comes to budgeting, right? That is kind of the pillar to truly control your inflows and outflows in order to build long-term wealth. I talk about it from the lens of the 50-30-20 rule, right? 50% of your after tax take home should be going towards your necessities, 30% to your wants, and then 20% for savings and paying down debt, investing, etc. Let's break this down for a kid, right? What do you think that breakdown should be for, spending, saving, investing, and giving, knowing they technically don't have any overhead, they don't have any expenses, and they're not paying rent, etc. What should that breakdown look like for their allowance?
Depending on the age of the child, I mean, I think that you definitely want to start off teaching them how to save, and that saving their money is a good thing because they'll earn some interest on it. I remember my youngest son, when I was trying to explain the concept of interest to him, he kind of wasn't getting it, and then he goes, "So it's free money?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, it's free money. Yeah, that's the." I was just trying to help him understand,
That's
And I was like,
awesome.
"Yes, that's right. That's what that is." And so he's like, "Oh, that's great." And so so one thing we do in Greenlight is we allow the parents to exaggerate the point to make the point. So we have parent paid interest, so parents can kind of, like I remember I think I set it at like 12%, or at one point I was doing dollar for dollar matching 100%.
Nice.
So every dollar they saved, I would match it with a dollar.
Nice.
I remember my dad doing that for me. So that was
It's
so I
better.
think,
Those are real returns right there. You think
yeah, because then
you could put my
because
kids on that plan with you, brother?
yeah, because that way, what you want, right, is if it's a tiny amount, they won't really learn the lesson. But
Yeah.
if you exaggerate the point, like with the interest, then they really get it. Um, and because really, what you're trying to do, it's not like you're trying to say, oh, when you go out in the real world, you're going to get 100% interest. Like nobody's going to get that. But what you're really doing is you're trying to teach the kids the right habits.
Okay.
So you want them to learn these healthy financial habits, like saving versus spending. And if they learn these habits as a child, they're going to take those habits with them into adulthood.
Absolutely.
That is really the secret trick as parents that we're
'Cause
doing there.
l
We're
literally, I wanna say, like, only 23% of, American children are learning about finance in school, and therefore, it's up to the parents to actually enforce some of these things. So right now, we're gonna make the green light blueprint right now, right? I'm gonna hold you to some things, and we could put disclaimers and say, "This is only the opinion of you," right? But at what age should you introduce allowance? It's gonna be like rapid fire. At what age
okay.
should parents introduce allowance to their kids?
8 is fine.
8. Now, when allowance is introduced, is it weekly or monthly or every other week?
If they're 8 years old, you could do $8 a week.
Nice.
If they're 10 years old, you could do $10 a week. That's what I remember. I think we did that.
Okay, so now in this same realm, there's a thin line between being a parent and sometimes enabling bad behavior. What do you do, right? And you have 2 daughters. I also have 2 daughters, right? When you have, "Daddy, I don't have any money left, but I wanna get this." How many times do you give them that pass when you say, "Okay, I got you," or actually, "No, you gotta stand firm." Like, how many times are you doing that?
You're right. It's hard to say no to kids. Um, but it in some ways it's the best thing you can do is to and that's what I did especially when they were really young. I would just my wife Kelly and I we would kind of say, well, you had your allowance, did you spend it? Um, and then often what they had was they would usually have some in savings or investing. I just encouraged them not to take it. But if they had some in savings, I'd say, well, if you really want to spend it, you can move some
Mm,
money from savings over to spending. Um, if you really want to spend it,
mhm.
but you should think about that. If I'm totally honest, there were times where my son had used up his spending and his saving, and he wanted to take out of his investing account
Mm.
and to spend. And I just remember I Kelly and I talked about it, and we were like, you know what? I really don't want him to learn to take from that account, that you just don't touch that account. And so we kind of made an exception and gave him a little bit of extra money.
Nice.
I think we tied it to some
Future
like I think it was like I think it
a
was
future
washing our
royalty pay.
cars. It was like washing our cars, which
Oh,
turned out,
nice.
by the way, to be more work for Kelly and me than for him. For him. But anyways, because he's like, how do I do it? We're like,
Mhm.
well, you have to use the hose, and you need a bucket and a rag, and
Yeah,
so of course he doesn't know where any of those things are, and we had to
that's
get
hilarious.
involved to help him. So it was pretty funny.
No, I was gonna say I'm gonna keep it going. Right. At
Oh,
what
good, good.
age do you introduce credit cards to your kids?
Personally, I would keep them away from credit cards.
Mhm.
I think that there's some better ways to help build their credit than credit cards. There's some neat things like debit cards that are kind of structured in a way that they can build your credit. So I would we're working on one of those. So I think
Let's talk
that
about it. Well,
yeah, I
how
think
can you build your credit safely for parents for their children?
yeah, it's basically you can you could actually add them as an authorized user, but then put the card away in your drawer. Like, don't
Yeah.
actually give it to them, and that can be a way to start
Mhm.
building the credit for them, because they basically get some credit history that way,
Nice.
even though they're not transacting with that card, and
Mhm.
then you have no kind of risk that they're learning the wrong things. But you're also establishing their credit and allowing it to kind of tick over time, where they build up some credit history, and then when they turn 18, their credit score will be much better than it otherwise would have been.
Mhm.
Um, there's soon that Greenlight's going to have this product that it's basically a debit card, but it has this creative way of building your credit. So that's going to be for young people. You'll see that come out from us later this year, actually. And so those are two ways you'll be able to do it.
Nice.
But right now, one way is you could add them as an authorized user on your credit card, but just put the card away when it comes, and
Mhm.
just have them use. I'm a big fan of having them use a debit card as their primary card, and really only card, because then they're learning that very basic thing of you can only spend what you have.
Nice. Because that was really one of my questions, right? To your point, to the people at home, right? Let's give you a caveat. Do not add your kids as an authorized user if you yourself don't have good credit, because they're now going to
Correct.
inherit your bad credit, which is
Correct.
actually a bad thing. So, for me, right, as I was thinking, I actually called the credit card companies to see when exactly they start reporting credit of the authorized user to the actual rating agencies. And so some credit cards they don't start until they're like 18. Others might do like 13. And
That's
so
right. That's
that
right.
is something that when I get to that point, because when they told me, oh well, for this particular card, they
Yeah.
were like, actually we won't report it until they're 18. I was like, okay, it's literally no purpose of doing it, because the
Correct.
actual reason for me doing it was to get it and just rip them up. I wasn't even putting it away. Like, they would never
That's
get
right.
access to it, but I
Yeah,
want them
yeah,
to
that's
start
right.
having that credit history. So I
That's the way
do.
to do it, Ross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I'm definitely excited to see kind of what you guys release later this year, because you know, it's interesting, right? Like, you look at what credit cards can do to people, right? And it's effectively, a lot of this stuff is kind of predatory, where, a
It
kid
is.
turns 18, get on a college campus, and the vast majority, especially if they're not learning this at home, because we already know schools for the most part aren't teaching this. So you get on a college campus and you think you got free $10,000, and you're just racking them up. Oh, wait, I could get another free $10,000 credit card. Let me just get it. And what happens? Kids are graduating with a ton of debt
One
in
good
addition
thing
to student loans.
Yeah. One good thing is that, I think I think it I think it passed under, when Obama was president. I think there's now a law that basically prevents the credit card companies from, you know, offering credit cards to kids before they're 21.
Mm,
So that's good. Because that's new. Because like when I went to
yeah.
school and when you went to school, we were getting
Yeah.
inundated with it. So
Absolutely.
that's good. Basically, you can get a credit card on your own under 21, but you have to be able to prove that you have income independent of your parents. So it's
Mm.
not It's not
Yeah.
common that somebody can do it. So the overall effect is basically that most people, most young adults can't get a credit card until they're 21. So that's a good thing, especially if they've learned to use a debit card and they've learned that you only spend what you have. You want to have some savings set aside, just a little bit to absorb those unexpected expenses that pop up, and then invest the rest. That's what I tell my kids.
As a parent, you have two accounts. I could get to a custodial Roth IRA, but we're going to assume, right? We're not just going to take that off the table. We're talking normal brokerage account, right? UGMA, and a 529. If you as a parent only have $200 a month to put in for each kid or for your kid, what would you say your breakdown is allocating to those two accounts?
You could do the simple thing and split it, right?
Nice.
You could do 50-50. You could, depending on your investing savviness, when I looked at it, and I've been investing since I was like 15. And
Nice.
so I kind of went the path of, I'm going to build up their brokerage accounts. And then my main reasoning was I didn't have a lot of money and I wasn't sure if we were going to need that money before they go to college. And so that was why I kind of went the brokerage route. Is essentially, when I did the analysis, I was like, well, access to the money is a little more important than the tax benefit of the 529. And so I went that path. But everybody has to make their own decision. Like if you feel like you might be too tempted to pull it out of the brokerage account, then put it in the 529 so that the penalty there will kind of prevent you from taking it out. That's for everybody to decide. Or if you're just not sure, you could just split it. You could put half in the 529 and half in the brokerage account.
Yeah. I think it's really important to have a balance of both, right? To your point, you could do 50-50 or you could kind of lean more to the other depending as the parent is, right? I don't recommend this for everybody, but in my kids' brokerage account, I get a little more aggressive. They're owning Leap options. Like they are, I'm getting and they've been crushing it, right? And so
That's awesome.
they're better invested than daddy. They have less emotion because they don't know what's going on. All right.
Exactly.
But
I love it. That's hilarious.
I think the thing with the 529 is interesting is because what people don't realize is like you have the ability to change the beneficiary. And they're changing the rules, right? At some point, say, you have some that's left over, you can convert $30,000 of that to be their Roth IRA now. But the best thing that I learned when you start thinking about generational wealth and like leaving assets, one of the biggest things people don't realize is like the ability to make sure your kids never have any student loans. And one of my mentors who's doing, very well, for all of his kids' 529s, he never pulled money from it. And he's just he's allowing that money to stay there. I doubt he's still contributing to it. But, rule of 72, people, your money's going to double every 7 years. So his idea of what he's doing with the 529, he's going to keep it and leave it. And the beneficiary, he will end up changing the beneficiary to his grandchildren. They eventually have kids. So now you're talking about another 28 years or so of just compound. And I thought that was one of the most interesting things that I've ever seen. He was like, oh yeah, my kids got 529s, but I don't pull from it. We're just those would be my grandkids' accounts. And none of his kids actually have children. And I was like, that's interesting.
That is.
Yeah,
I like that.
That was neat.
I like
that.
that.
That was neat. Yeah. Now I got a question, right? Because there's a generation that are now hooked, right? You can't turn on ESPN or any other sports broadcast without them showing you what the gambling lines are. The news anchors now putting in, fake bets. Oh, I'm going to take such and such to cover. How do you, as a parent with grown kids now, who you started out being extremely financially literate, teaching them how to invest, and now there's something that is obviously going to be pulling them in a different direction, that being sports gambling. As a parent, how are you talking to your kids, I would assume maybe just the boys, but I don't know. How are you talking to your kids in general about, sports gambling?
It's a great question because it's like it is. I saw a stat I think that said of high school boys, 70% or 75% of them had gambled,
Yeah.
which just blew my mind.
It is
But
being
yeah,
pushed on
it
society
is
right
being
now.
pushed. It is. It
Yeah.
really is. What I told my kids is I said it's kind of the same thing I told them about Vegas. I was like, I think the way I said it was Vegas wins. They always win.
Always
The
wins.
house wins. And so if you gamble, whether you do it in Vegas or you do it on sports, guess what? They're going to win. They
Yeah.
always win. And so, and you are going to lose.
Yep.
And so this is what I told them, my kids. And so I said, you might win one time, but guess what? You're going to lose more than what you won the next time. And then before you know it, you're going to have lost a lot if you kind of, do this. And so what I said was, it's kind of the same thing with Vegas. I said, treat it as entertainment. So if you want to, spend $1 or whatever, $10, for pure entertainment, as if you're going to the movies, like count on losing it. The probability is you are going to lose it. And so treat it as entertainment. It's like $10 you would have spent on a movie, but instead you're doing this form of entertainment. That is fine to do.
Yeah.
This is what I told my kids. But I was like, number one, I don't recommend it because it can suck you in the way that it's almost kind of like a drug. Gambling can really
100%.
suck you in. It's addictive.
Yeah.
And I said, so I don't recommend it. I wouldn't do it. But my kids are grown now. You're adults. I was like, so obviously you're going to decide what you want to do.
Yeah.
But I said, just assume you're going to lose it. And do you really want to spend your money on that form of entertainment, or not, and thankfully I think they have steered clear of it.
I did an episode where, I was talking to someone and we were kind of breaking down the numbers where it's like the moment you add different legs to your parlay, it's nearly impossible to win, right? You got the 1 in 10,000, event where someone hits a 4, 5, 10 leg parlay and then that goes viral. Well, it's no accident that it went viral. That's just a different form of marketing, right? To make it look organic. So now you're thinking, oh, I can do that too. But yeah, Vegas always wins, people.
If there's anything in life right now that you can do yourself to transform your life with your own control and not be reliant on anyone else, it's investing.
Absolutely.
Investing can actually raise you up. It can transform your life and your family's life. But learn how to do it the right way. It's don't approach investing like gambling, and approach investing like Warren Buffett or Peter Lynch. Like those guys, that's how you invest.
I love it. I love it. Tim, you've been phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for my brother, Tim Sheehan, CEO of Greenlight. That's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell an auntie and an uncle and a cousin to like and subscribe, and share this with somebody that's a parent that truly needs to know, you know what, let me get my life in order. Let me make sure my kids are actually being prepared and starting to invest and learn how to spend money and give money and save money, and more importantly, invest money. That's it for this episode. We'll see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy, Ross Mack, Financial Freestyle, here on Yahoo Finance.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.